When I first met Ryan, I genuinely believed I'd found the kind of man stories romanticize. He was charming, attentive, thoughtful in ways that felt personal, not performative. I remember thinking how lucky I was that someone like him chose someone like me. Our early days were full of those little gestures that convince you you've made the right choice. Late night drives, spontaneous notes, forehead kisses just because. I carried those memories like armor, even when things started to shift. We got married young, full of hope and assumptions. The first year was sweet, full of new routines and growing into each other. By year two, some of that shimmer wore off, but I chalked it up to normalcy, not neglect. It was subtle at first. Ryan started coming home later, always blaming work. I didn't question it because I trusted him. He had never given me a reason not to, but slowly, the phone that used to lie face up was always flipped. Notifications came silenced. He'd leave the room to answer calls. I asked once, casually, and he waved it off with a laugh and said I was being dramatic. The dismissiveness stung more than the secrecy. I told myself every couple goes through dry spells, that we were both just busy, tired, stressed. I didn't want to admit that something felt different. There was a time I would have said we were each other's safe space. Lately, it felt like we were just sharing space. Conversations grew shallow. I'd share stories about my day, and he'd nod distractedly, barely listening. Even on weekends, his attention was elsewhere. His phone, his laptop, vague errands that took too long. I tried. I planned date nights, cooked his favorite meals, initiated conversations. I wanted to believe this was a phase, a bump we'd get over, but no matter what I did, he was distant. Not cruel, not cold, just gone. The version of him I loved seemed to be slipping out of focus. And still, I made excuses for him. Maybe he was dealing with something he didn't know how to share. Maybe he didn't realize how much he was pulling away. Then came the night of our third anniversary. I came home expecting something, anything, even just a dinner together. But he'd forgotten. No card, no mention, just a distracted, "Oh, that was today," followed by a quick apology and a last-minute takeout order. I smiled and said it was fine, but something inside me sank. I remember going to bed that night and feeling more alone lying next to him than I ever had in my life. I wasn't naive. I knew what distance often meant, but I wasn't ready to say it out loud. I didn't want to be the wife who checked phones or stalked locations. I wanted to believe we were better than that. Until I saw a photo on Instagram, a reflection in a car window, unmistakably his. And next to him, a woman wearing a bracelet I remembered from a work party a year ago. My stomach turned. I said nothing. But that was the moment I stopped pretending not to notice. Something was wrong. I didn't know how far it went yet, but I was going to find out. After seeing that photo, something inside me shifted. I didn't confront him. I didn't cry or accuse. I just paid attention. Every excuse, every late night, every vague detail. Suddenly, I was tracking it all. It stopped being about suspicion. It became a quiet mission to find the truth. I needed facts, not feelings. He said he had a team dinner one evening, and I nodded, pretending not to care. But I checked his location using an old iPad we both forgot was synced to his Apple ID. He wasn't at any restaurant near his office. He was across town, at a small bistro tucked away from the usual places. My heart didn't race. It didn't sink. It just hardened. I waited. I watched. The next week, he had another meeting. Same story, different lie. Again, the location didn't match. Again, I said nothing. I started collecting everything, screenshots of locations, timestamps, receipts left in his pockets. I saw a hotel charge for a Thursday night. He claimed it was for a colleague who needed a place to crash during a conference. I didn't argue. I just filed the lie away. I began keeping a small notebook. Every excuse, every inconsistency, every proof that I wasn't imagining things. I stopped asking questions. He stopped noticing I'd stopped. That told me everything. He was used to me trying. He wasn't prepared for silence. One night, I drove to that same bistro. I didn't go inside. I just waited outside in my car and watched. He walked out an hour later, laughing, his hand briefly brushing the back of the same woman I saw in the reflection. They didn't kiss. It didn't matter. The betrayal was already complete. Driving home, I didn't feel angry. I felt clear, like the fog had lifted and I finally saw the marriage for what it was. Not what it had been, but what it had become. I realized how long I'd been holding on to a version of us that no longer existed. At home, I played the part. I asked him how the meeting went. He said it was long but productive. I smiled. He smiled back. I don't think I've ever seen anything so hollow. That moment, I knew I wasn't going to ask him for the truth. I already had it. He slept beside me that night like nothing had changed. I stared at the ceiling and felt the weight of every night I'd cried over his distance, every second I questioned my instincts. I wasn't crazy, I wasn't insecure, I was right. And still, I didn't leave. Not yet. Because I wanted to understand what he was willing to do. I needed to see if he'd bury himself in lies or face the damage. I wasn't waiting for an apology. I was waiting to see who he really was when the mask slipped. What I didn't know then was that he was about to make a move that would change everything in a way I never saw coming. He came home early one afternoon, which was rare. I thought for a second he might be ready to confess. Instead, he told me he got a job offer in another city. Higher salary, new role, fresh start. He said it like it was good news, like we were still a team. I listened without showing anything. He painted it as an opportunity for both of us, said we could use a change, that maybe it would help us reconnect. He didn't mention her, not once, and that told me everything. He wasn't trying to fix what he broke, he was trying to outrun it. Reinvent the narrative before it unraveled. I let him talk. When he was done, I looked him in the eye and asked if the new job included her too. He froze. For the first time in weeks, I saw something real on his face. Panic. Not guilt, not shame, just the raw fear of being caught. He asked what I meant. I asked again, slower. He looked away. Then the excuses began. It was nothing serious. It was over. It didn't mean anything. He was confused. It was complicated. He tried to turn it around, said he hadn't told me because he didn't want to lose me, that he realized too late how much he still loved me, that the job offer was part of a plan to make things right. It was strange, hearing someone lie and try to apologize in the same breath. He kept talking about fixing us, rebuilding trust, starting fresh. But all I heard was him trying to salvage comfort, not love. His words felt rehearsed, like something he told himself enough times to believe. I told him I'd known for weeks, that I'd seen them, that I'd tracked him. He didn't get angry. He got quiet. Maybe because there was nothing left to deny. Maybe because he realized he'd lost control of the narrative. He asked what I wanted to do now. I told him I didn't know. That was a lie. I knew. I just wasn't going to let him see it yet. He offered therapy, promised full transparency, said he'd block her number, delete everything. But none of that touched the part of me that had already detached. I was done looking for sincerity in a man who only reacted when he was cornered. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I just told him I needed time. He nodded like he understood, but he didn't. He still thought effort would erase damage. He still thought love was enough to fix what he destroyed. That night, I lay next to him and felt nothing. No warmth, no hurt, just a quiet clarity. I wasn't angry, I was free. The version of him I loved didn't exist anymore.